At that time again, Mahamate, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said this to the Blessed One. Nirvana. Nirvana is talked of by the Blessed One. What does this term designate? What is the nirvana that is discriminated by all the philosophers? Said the Blessed One. Then, Mahamate, listen well and reflect well within yourself. I will tell you. Certainly, Blessed One, said Mahamate the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, and gave ear to the Blessed One. The Blessed One said this to him. As to such nirvanas as are discriminated by the philosophers, there are really none in existence. Some philosophers conceive nirvana to be found where a system of mentation no more operates owing to the cessation of the skandhas, dhatus, and ayatanas, or to the indifference to the objective world, or to the recognition that all things are impermanent, or where there is no recollection of the past and present, just as when a lamp is extinguished, or when a seed is burnt, or when a fire goes out, because then there is the cessation of all the substrate, which is explained by the philosophers as the non-arising of discrimination. But, Mahamate, nirvana does not consist in mere annihilation. Again, some explain deliverance by going to another quarter and abode, as when a wind stops blowing, when the discrimination of objects ceases. Again, some philosophers explain deliverance by the getting rid of the dualistic view of knower and known. Some conceive deliverance to be the cessation of discrimination where one sees permanence and impermanence. Again, some explain the discrimination of various forms as the bearer of pain, and yet not understanding that there is nothing but what is seen of the mind itself, are alarmed by the notion of form, and seek their happiness in formlessness. In this they cherish the notion of nirvana. Again, some conceive this to be nirvana, namely, that in consideration of generality and individuality recognizable in all things inner and outer, they are never destroyed, maintaining their being throughout the past, present, and future. Again, some conceive that nirvana is an ego soul, a being, a vital force, a nourisher, a supreme spirit, and the indestructibility of all things. Again, Mahamate, some philosophers, owing to their foolishness, declare this to be nirvana, namely, that there is a primary substance, there is a supreme soul, and they are seen differently by each, and that they produce all things from the transformations of the qualities. Some conceive nirvana to consist of the extinction of merit and demerit, some in the destruction of the passions by means of knowledge, some in regarding Isvara as the free creator of the world. Some think that the world is born of interaction and that there is no special cause other than this cause, and clinging to it they have no awakening because of stupidity, and they conceive nirvana to consist in this non-awakening. Again, Mahamate, some philosophers conceive nirvana to be the attaining of the true path. Some cherish the thought of nirvana as where there is the union of qualities and their owner, from which there is oneness and otherness, bothness and not bothness. Some imagine that nirvana is where they see the self-nature of things, existing all by its own nature, such as the variegated feathers of the peacock, variously formed precious stones, or the pointedness of a thorn. Some, Mahamate, conceive nirvana in the recognition of the 25 tattvas, or truths. Some in the king's observance of the teaching of the 6 virtues. Some, seeing that time is a creator and that the rise of the world depends on time, conceive that nirvana consists in recognizing this fact. Again, Mahamate, some conceive being to be nirvana, some non-being, while some conceive that all things and nirvana are not to be distinguished one from another. All these views of nirvana, severally advanced by the philosophers with their reasonings, are not in accord with logic, nor are they acceptable to the wise. Mahamate, they all conceive nirvana dualistically and in a causal connection, By these discriminations, Mahamate, all philosophers imagine Nirvana, but there is nothing arising, nothing disappearing here, and there is no room for discrimination. Mahamate, each philosopher, relying on his own textbook, from which he draws his understanding and intelligence, examines the subject and sins against the truth, because the truth is not such as is imagined by him. His reasoning ends in setting the mind to wandering about and becoming confused, as Nirvana is not to be found anywhere. Again, Mahamate, there are others who, roaring with their all-knowledge as a lion's roar, explain Nirvana in the following way. That is, Nirvana is where it is recognized that there is nothing but what is seen of the mind itself, where there is no attachment to external objects, existent or non-existent, where, getting rid of the four propositions, there is an insight into the abode of reality as it is, where, recognizing the nature of the self-mind, one does not cherish the dualism of discrimination, where grasped and grasping are no more obtainable, where all logical measures are not seized upon, as it is realized that they never assert themselves, where the idea of truth is not adhered to, but treated with indifference because of its causing a bewilderment, where, by the attainment of the exalted Dharma, which lies within the inmost recesses of one's being, the two forms of egolessness are recognized, the two forms of passions subsided, and the two kinds of hindrance cleared away, where the stages of bodhisattvahood are passed, one after another, until the stage of Tathagatahood is attained, in which all the samadhis, beginning with the Maya-like, are realized, and the Citta, Manas, and Manavijnana are put away. Here, indeed, they say Nirvana is to be found. Nirvana is severally conceived by the philosophers, but theirs is no more than imagination. It is not the way of emancipation. Released of bound and binding and free from all expediencies, the philosophers imagine they are emancipated, but emancipation is not to be found there. Divided into many a school are the systems of the philosophers. There is thus no emancipation in them, because of their imagination stupidity carried on. Wrongly imbued with the idea of cause and effect, all the philosophers are beguiled, and theirs is thus no emancipation for them who are of the dualistic school of being and non-being. The ignorant are delighted with discoursing and false reasoning, but they are unable to raise any great intelligence toward truth or tattva. Discoursing is a source of suffering in the triple world, while truth is the extinguisher of suffering. Like an image seen in a mirror, which is not real, the mind is seen by the ignorant in a dualistic form, in the mirror of habit energy. When it is not thoroughly understood that there is nothing but what is seen of the mind itself, dualistic discriminations take place. When it is thoroughly understood that there is nothing but what is seen of the mind itself, discrimination ceases. Mind is no other than multiplicity, and yet it is devoid of qualified and qualifying. Forms are visible, but not in the way as seen discriminated by the ignorant. The triple world is no other than discrimination. There are no external objects. Discrimination sees multiplicity. This is not understood by the ignorant. The truth is told differently, discriminated in the different sutras, because of names and notions. Yet apart from words, no meaning is attainable.